in most of your heads. You know, I'm sure that most of you have been going through RFP processes that have multiple suppliers, and they're providing their pricing in different formats, and then you get a new version in, and God forbid that comes through in a different format again. And there's so much time goes into the working and the reworking to get us back to what should be a fairly simple output, right? Now, today we're going to talk about how we can make that process easy to manage, a lot more streamlined and nearly automated, using Power BI instead of Excel. Okay. So again, you know, put some slides together that might be useful for you guys to take away at the end of this as well. So we will pass this pack over to Jonathan to distribute to everyone. But this is a pretty generic page on why Power BI can outshine Excel for this kind of application, right? We can create a Power BI analysis ahead of time. So we can actually do all of the hard yards for our RFP analysis before that crunch period for the RFP. You know, again, we've all had those stakeholders who are very, very expectant to get the results of supplier submissions, you know, yesterday. And then especially when we come into second or third round pricing, quite often those timelines get squeezed even further. So being able to create that analysis and have that tool sitting there ready to go ahead of time is really, really useful. With a little bit of smarts, we can create reports that can handle as many suppliers as we want and as many different versions of pricing as we want as well, which is, again, just makes everyone's job simpler through this update process. We don't have, you know, 200 folders all nested with different versions. We don't have 20 different versions of a spreadsheet all saved with slightly different names. There's a single version of the truth right from the start, and it's very clear how that information is accessed by our stakeholders. And Power BI reports are generally a little bit easy to digest, so we're able to really get down to the nitty gritty of what the RFP is meant to be addressing, and whether that is price or something else. We do have an alternate RFP to show you guys a little bit later that's focused on softer metrics than just pricing. But being able to understand those requirements lets us build a dashboard around it and really display the information that our stakeholders need to see to help make the best decision that they can. Okay. And the Excel ones, I'm sure everyone's very familiar with, right? High manual effort, lots of room for error, and it's difficult to keep track of different versions. Okay. So again, it's really easy to make mistakes. And in personal experience, once you've made one or two mistakes in an RFP process with spreadsheets, you're constantly being met with apprehension from stakeholders. You know, they're not sure if this version's actually right or not, or if you're going to have to go back to the drawing board and repeat it. So getting those outputs correct from the start, making them easy to update, and presenting data nicely is what we're talking about today. So this is the tool that we came up with for this project. This was a tender evaluation dashboard whereby we could control the format that suppliers were pricing for us in the RFP, delivered that to our suppliers, and then they all came in through a single channel and all managed through Power BI refreshing from a SharePoint site. So we could actually automate the refreshes in the cloud and just have the dashboard refreshing every hour. So our procurement stakeholders on the project were free to update pricing spreadsheets whenever they wanted, and those dashboards would refresh really quickly, or we could even run a manual refresh, you know, on demand to pull those updates through straight away. And in this case, the dashboard was fully branded for the client's colors and themes as well, which meant that it was really easy to take snapshots of the dashboard, take those out, put them into a PowerPoint. You can even put live Power BI dashboards into PowerPoints now. There's some pretty interesting stuff happening there. Yeah, cool. Any questions about this so far? All right. So I'm going to jump into the dashboard now and talk to you guys a little bit about what we put together. Is this screen sharing properly? Can you see the dashboard now?
Yeah, we can.
Awesome. Okay, so this is Power BI. Okay, again, we've had a couple of sessions on this in the past, but it's you know, Jonathan was correct. It's the desktop version is free from Microsoft. And we can pretty much anything you can build in Excel, you can automate in Power BI, right? That's how I like to describe it to people. So our problem here was a logistics RFP for a large aggregate company in New Zealand, South Island. So they currently had 2 incumbent suppliers with 2 different DCs that were distributing all over the South Island. It was a really complex set of relationships. So the 2 different business units were actually run really independently of each other as well, but managed by a central procurement team. So we had a lot of different stakeholders. We had a lot of different moving parts for, quite an important part of their business, right? Like really the most crucial part of their business. It was getting that core product to sites on time. In this example, the suppliers had been pre-screened for some of those, for some of those other aspects, right? Like they were national enough suppliers. They were willing to work with us. We didn't have any bad relationships, that kind of thing. So this stage of the RFP was really about pricing. Okay, now in this example here, we used Power BI to build up our baseline. And we took all of our baseline data from our current providers and ingested this into Power BI in a way that we could then use to model new supplier quoting by comparing it like for like based on exactly what we spent last year. Okay, now this means that everything built up in the dashboard is a perfect image of this is what the picture would look like if we had this new supplier for the last 12 months, right? And that's what this first chart here in the top left is showing us. If I went with either of these 4 new suppliers with very real sounding names, it's not fake data at all. This is the total cost we can expect to see from those suppliers, right? Again, in logistics, can be a slightly complicated category, and you'll see this across air freight and container shipping as well. But suppliers quite often have different costing, have different prices for different weight brackets. So in this case, we had different brackets for 1 to 5 tons, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, and the 15 plus tonnage cost. Now, again, and we'll come back to this at the end, but aligning the requirements across all of our suppliers meant that those brackets were uniform across everyone quoting on the RFP, right? We didn't have people quoting in odd brackets or anything like that would mean we'd have to do more work on our end. We made it really clear to the suppliers, these were the brackets we were interested in. This is how we've measured our baseline, and this was how we performed our analysis, right? Now, here, and I can click on any of these brackets to just highlight those in the chart. And for this example, comparing the stacked column and the side-by-side column is really interesting. It shows us slightly different things, right? So here we can see that overall, quite a big chunk of our shipping business is in this 1 to 5 cost bracket. And then the second biggest is actually in the 15 plus, right? So as a business, that chart instantly tells us a bunch of things, right? It tells us that we're either shipping really well, big shipments, 15 plus tons, it's bulk goods, we can get a better rate, or we're shipping really badly and we're not doing a lot in between, right? Now, again, when going out to market, that can create like an interesting set of responses from suppliers, because you tend to find some suppliers could be better at the low end and some could be better at the high end, but we have this real distributed method. And so part of the outcome for modeling in this example was that we wanted to select a single best supplier, but we also wanted to have a look at what best case could look like, right?